After weeks of only takeaways and deliveries, diners say it feels good to sit down and have a quick meal again. If I'm not vaccinated, can I eat in a restaurant after I test negative? We'll be answering questions about the differentiated rules. And if global warming continues at the current rate, Singapore could take bigger hits from climate change. Hello, live in the Straits Times newsroom, I'm Olivia Quay. Well, those stories coming up, but first, the 16-year-old River Valley High School student charged with the murder of a 13-year-old schoolmate has been remanded for 2 more weeks for psychiatric evaluation. Well, since being charged on July 20th, he's been in remand at the Complex Medical Center at Changi Prison. Earlier today, he appeared in court again via video link, wearing a white t-shirt and light blue mask. His parents and family members were present in the court gallery. The case has been adjourned to August the 24th. An update on the COVID-19 situation here. 54 new cases were confirmed today. 53 were locally transmitted, with 38 linked to previous cases. 15 are currently unlinked. More details will be released later tonight. Following last night's announcement of a new COVID-19 cluster at the NKF Dialysis Center in Boon Keng, all its frontline staff and some patients have been placed on quarantine. The affected patients will keep receiving treatment during their quarantine at another center designated by the Health Ministry. NKF said 3 of its patients had tested positive and are in hospital. All are in a stable condition and not in ICU. Well, after weeks of just takeaways, diners were back in hawker centres and coffee shops where they're allowed to dine in pairs from today, regardless of their vaccination status. My colleagues were at the hawker centres at Bukit Panjang and 505 Jurong West this morning, and they saw a steady stream of customers at some stalls. And most seats were occupied. Safe distancing ambassadors were out in full force as well to ensure diners check in. And this is the lunchtime crowd. At the Plaza Singapura food court, staff were seen checking the vaccination status of patrons. Those vaccinated received a yellow sticker and were allowed to dine in. Meanwhile, MOH has clarified that those who have recovered from COVID-19 in the last 270 days will still need a valid pre-event test exemption notice if they want to dine in at an F&B establishment. The new rules are fairly straightforward for vaccinated people. You can gather and dine in groups of 5. How about those unvaccinated? Still unsure of the differentiated rules, let's try to answer some of these questions now. First commonly asked question, if I'm not vaccinated, can I eat in a restaurant? You can, but you must first test negative for COVID-19. If you have a valid negative pre-event test result, you can still be part of a group of 5. You must pay for your own test, but if you don't want to take the test, you can eat out only at hawker centres or coffee shops, which are open to groups of 2, regardless of vaccination status. So where can I get a pre-event test? You can find the list of clinics offering them on MOH's website, along with the costs of getting tested, which range between $30 and $100. And the result of this test is valid for up to 24 hours. What kind of proof of vaccination do I then need to show? You will need to show your vaccination status in the Trace Together or Health Hub app or hard copy proof. But hard copies of overseas vaccination certificates won't be accepted. MOH said yesterday that it's because it's difficult for establishments to verify the authenticity of these certs, which are issued in different formats and languages. Across the causeway, Malaysian celebrities are posting their condolences following the death of singer Siti Sarah, who died of COVID-19 yesterday. She was 8 months pregnant with her fourth child, who was saved via an emergency C-section on August the 6th. Actress Hana Delisha tweeted, "All my strength, love and prayers to Siti Sarah's family during this heartbroken time. May Almighty Allah grant her eternal peace." YouTuber Ginny Boy wrote, "Rest in peace, Siti Sarah. Prayers out to the family. Such sad news to wake up to." And on Facebook, a palace statement said, "Their Majesties also expressed their sadness over her passing and hope that her family will be patient and resilient as they cope with the loss." Reporting 143 new infections today, China's cases are at a 7-month high, with dozens coming from a COVID-19 testing site in Yangzhou City. State media has described the current outbreak as the most severe since the virus emerged in Wuhan. Meanwhile, Sydney authorities are cranking up enforcement on COVID-19 rules after it reported its biggest daily caseload yet, 343 new infections. However, suggestions of tougher measures like a curfew are being dismissed. Sydney has been in lockdown for more than 6 weeks. In a major report yesterday by the United Nations top climate science body, climate change is widespread, rapid and intensifying, with some effects like sea level rise now irreversible over hundreds of years. So to limit this accelerated pace, deep cuts in greenhouse gas emissions must be made in the coming decades. Even then, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change said the most severe of cuts is unlikely to prevent global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial temperatures. Another key conclusion from the report: weather extremes like heat waves, cyclones and droughts are becoming more common. Sea levels are sure to keep rising for hundreds of thousands of years. Even if global warming were halted at 1.5 degrees, the average sea level would still rise about 2 to 3 meters, maybe more. And the world will likely use up its carbon budget in about a decade. While the harshest impacts of climate change have been elsewhere so far, the report indicates that Singapore must brace itself for tougher times ahead. ST's climate change editor tells us what it means for our little island in the immediate and midterm.
Of course, Singapore's quite a small place, so the broader models they looked at couldn't define Singapore specifically, but generally in the tropics, in the short term, we'll see kind of similar sort of weather that we're getting now to warmer weather, bursts of extreme or heavy rain, followed by drier periods. Sort of medium to longer term, the pattern will be, certainly in the next few decades, is hotter weather, generally, again, longer sort of periods between rain or longer dry periods, and increasingly heavy sort of bursts of rain when they do fall. Now, that, of course, is the heat is certainly exacerbated by what's called the urban heat island effect, which, of course, is the heat both generated by buildings and cars, and but also trapped by buildings and roads. So the overall temperature increase in Singapore to date is a bit higher than the global average, so it's about 1.8 degrees, and part of that is due to heat being trapped by buildings and generated by buildings, industry, and transport. So Singapore is already thinking deeply about tackling heat, increasing heat in the future. So it wants buildings to be a lot more efficient in the energy that they use, but also the energy or the heat that they generate. So air conditioning units are a big source of heat. So the government's sort of mandating those to be much more efficient. The chillers, for example. Buildings also need to use energy inside more wisely, so lighting. The other thing too is, of course, roads are a big source of heat because it's black and they absorb heat during the day, and of course they radiate the heat at night. So one way is to increase shading for paths and along roads. So the government, of course, has a large tree planting campaign. Going forward, electrification of transport will also cut heat and emissions and improve air quality from transport. So gradually phasing out internal combustion engines from cars, trucks, buses, and so forth will be a big plus in many ways. But also, phasing out fossil fuel use from electricity generation. Industry will also reduce, again, air pollution, but also heat generated by big factories, power stations, and so forth.
If you're a driver, driving here is expensive. In fact, Singapore is the world's most expensive city to own a car. Some car lovers, though, are even willing to fork out more money to make sure their ride stands out. Well, in modifying their cars, these people go through great expense, not just money, but their reputations and lives as well.
They are very careful and stealth. They do in the night, they close their door, they take out the car license plate and then they do their mods.
Car enthusiasts like us, people brand us like secret society lah. We do things very secretly, we modify cars secretly.
So modifying this car is how I make this car mine. For me, this is like my canvas. This is my self-expression.
Faster, flashier and, well, more dangerous. What is it with some car lovers and their modified cars? I dive into the world of modified cars and find out why some are so willing to flirt with the law and their lives for the most junked ride. How dangerous is it? And why are these car workshops willing to risk jail terms just to help these speedsters build their dream car?
Well, ST's investigative series Close Up explores this world of modified cars because it skids dangerously close to illegal activities. Last week, Haryanto and I found out from producer Vanessa Liu what it was like to pursue this project.
Thanks for coming on to the show, Vanessa. One of your profiles was filmed in silhouette, assuming he didn't want his identity to be revealed. Finding people to speak about their own car modifications would have been a challenge. Tell us more about that and what other challenges did you face?
So the most challenging part of producing this video was to enter this world of junk cars as an outsider. I think the community of car enthusiasts in Singapore is so small, almost everyone knows everyone, which means if you're not someone from the community, you stick out like a sore thumb. And we had a hard time getting people to talk to us because this is not your typical video where the profiles talk about food or yoga or things like that. The people we had gotten in contact with were aware that they are sometimes towing the line between what's legal and illegal with their passion for cars. And because of that, they don't open up easily. And sometimes after they do, they regret it. So we have had like 2 profiles who had agreed to appearing on video at first, but who pulled out ultimately because they were afraid of inviting trouble, and there were many more who didn't even want to speak to us in the first place when they knew from the media.
Well, Vanessa, what do you hope that viewers take away from this project? What was the objective in the first place?
I think when we think about junk cars or modified cars, a few things immediately come to mind. The cars with the huge spoilers, the flashy body kits, and loud revving engines, driven by so-called abings with dyed hair and branded shoes and the likes. I think this is the general impression that the public has of junk cars and junk car drivers, myself included. But doing this video also made me realize that the stereotypes that we have about this community are not that accurate. These car enthusiasts, they look like any one of us, to be honest. We have interviewed those who speak your typical abings with the street lingo, but there's also those who spoke perfect English. There were young interviewees, 24, 25 years old, but there were also older ones in their 40s. And we have met those with so-called rich and powerful parents, yes, but we have also met a couple who are self-made men. They work hard and build their own businesses, and now they just want to spend their money on their hobby, cars. It's a very diverse community, and I must say that not all those who junk cars speed. Not all of them are nuisance on the roads. Most just want the space to enjoy their passion for cars. To put it simply, in Singapore, we have a population of about 1 million cars, right? I think those who are passionate about cars, they just want to be different from the rest and not look like any other Toyota, Honda on the road. And I think this was something that kept recurring throughout the course of doing this project, that these people junk their cars to make their own. But of course, like a house, if you want to add stuff, like removing or adding a beam, it will affect the structural integrity, it will affect safety. And that's where I think authorities want to step in to issue permits to make sure that the mods are safe, so that cars are safe to travel on public roads. So I think in general, this community does understand the need for safety when they zheng their cars, but I think they feel that there should be more differentiation in how authorities regulate these car modifications, because mods are not equal. Some are dangerous, some are not. And car enthusiasts feel that authorities could look into revising some of these regulations, instead of having a blanket rule or saying no to everything.
You can watch the latest episode of Close Up on the Straits Times' YouTube channel. It's called Zheng, Inside the World of Modified Cars. Subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below. I'm Olivia Quay. See you tomorrow on The Big Story.